If you're wanting to do new home stage inspections, part of the construction process, there's the pre-pour slab inspection, which I go there and while the concreters are on site, and check that the footings are in place, the steel is in the correct positioning, that it's all going to be compliant with prior to the concrete being poured. While I'm there and the concreters are there, if there's any issues that I do find, I call the concreter over and go, righto, we need to fix this. Now, the report will entail a before and after shot. It's not a normal defect report that I send to the builder. This is a report because the concreter is there. I'm ensuring that these things are getting rectified straight away so that there's no hold up with the concrete pour, which is usually the following day. So while I'm there, I'll take a before shot and go, this is not compliant. Concreter, come over here, fix this up, whatever it might be. They fix it up. I'll take the second shot, go, there it is, fixed, and that's what goes into the report. These things can take from an hour to, I've been on a job up to 5 hours. With the concreters, that was a particularly bad job and the concreters weren't particularly competent, shall we say, but we got it there at the end and the job ran smoothly from that point on. And it's really important that the slab gets poured well because it affects everything else afterwards, frame, brickwork, you name it. Okay. So after slab stage, there's the frame stage where I go in, the frame has already been erected, the roof trusses or roof framework has been installed, and I go around and I check for compliance or non-compliance with the frame, and I ensure that all the studs are in position, they're a certain distance apart and they're not over that distance. And I go in with a nice can of pink spray paint. Builders don't like this very much. I go and spray around where the defect is so that it's nice and clear in the report. You can see that pink spray paint. Not all the clients will understand what the references are in the report, as long as the builder understands. So I send the report to the client as well as the builder, and the builder is required to rectify those defects prior to the next stage commencing. Without going into too much detail, basically I write my report up to what is not compliant with the relevant Australian standard, building code, so forth, and that's how it's written in the report. Builders are required to build to Australian standards. All plans reference that this construction is required to be built to Australian standards, the relevant Australian standards, and that's what I bring up, the relevant Australian standards that they're not compliant with, and that way the builder can't come back at me and go, no, I'm not doing that. They are required to actually rectify that. So the next stage after frame stage is lock-up stage. So generally the brickwork or the external cladding has been installed, the windows have been installed, and there's what's called the rough-in. So the electricians and the plumbers have put in all their pipework and so forth. I quite often find when I'm doing the lock-up stage that there's a certain distance apart for pipes when they're running up through walls, when they're drilled through and they're penetrating the framework of the walls. And I quite often find that they have the pipes or the cables too close together, and that actually weakens the wall. So what they are then required to do, if I find that, is they're required to actually do additional strengthening. Now I write in my report ways that they can do additional strengthening of the wall without affecting too much else, that it's not going to affect plasterboard when that gets fitted onto the walls later on, and skirtings and things like that, that it's not going to affect any of that, but it is a requirement that they do this strengthening. I have spoken to several structural engineers over the years with regards to what are the best ways for builders to rectify these issues, and that's how I've come up with these plans to actually rectify these issues that they have. Generally, the skirtings, the doors, internal doors, or the plasterboard has all been fitted. There's no paintwork. The main point of the fixing stage for me is making sure that the waterproof membranes in the bathrooms and the laundries and so forth, all the wet areas, has been installed correctly. And I go in there and I'll check over it. I have had many situations where I've gone in And for instance, the cabinet makers have been into the bathroom and fitted their cabinetry after the waterproof membrane's been applied, and they've damaged it, and they've punctured the waterproof membrane. Now, if the builder doesn't go in and check this and find it himself, the tiler can go in there straight afterwards and he can put his tiles in, and you've still got that puncturing in the waterproof membrane, and it's a failure, because later on you're using that shower, for instance, if it's the waterproof membrane within the shower recess, you get a leak, it can be an absolute major issue down the track, particularly upper story bathrooms. I was in a property recently, I was at the handover stage of a property, I hadn't done the other stages, and as I do in all building inspections at handover stage in particular, I turn on and off all the taps just to make sure that everything's running, there's no water hammer and all that sort of thing, there's no leaks. I did both showers upstairs in this house, checked them, yet no worries, went downstairs, ceilings below both those showers were leaking, and no one had even moved into the property. So that's part of the reason why the fixing stage is so important, particularly with the waterproof membranes. That's not the only part of it, obviously. There's, as I said, there's windows installed and so forth. It's ensuring that they're all installed properly, that they function properly, because once it's completed, if the window's not installed properly in the first place, then you can have issues with opening and closing and so forth, and sealing of that window. After the lock-up stage is handover stage, which is the completion of the home. It's the most involved inspection of all the inspections. I've had on many situations where the builder has actually said to the client, if we'd known that you were getting building inspections done, we would have had the better trades do the jobs, which is a bit of a disaster. This is where the 6-star or the 7-star, as it will be soon, energy rating comes into practice, with ensuring that door seals are all correctly fitted, window seals are in, that I also check for instance, all external doors and wet area doors are required to be painted top and bottom. I go around, I have a little dentist mirror, and I check under doors and on top of doors and make sure they're painted, and they're not always painted, and the builders hate me for this, but that's part of it. External doors in particular, because what happens is with the moist air and so forth, external doors, or any wet area doors, with the humidity of the room or the moisture from outside, the doors can expand and contract quite a lot, and they do on the tops and bottoms in particular, and then the doors jam. So that's why they are required to be painted top and bottom.